back to episode 5. That's exciting. Episode 5 of A Witch Is. And today we are joined by someone we've just been fangirling over. She's in the studio and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to tell my little sister. We have the beautiful Sherele Moody here. Welcome.
Oh my God, no fucking pressure.
No pressure. No. Dance, monkey, dance.
I don't know if I can live up to that shit.
No, you are a legend. And recently, tell us a bit about how you got involved with this International Women's Day 2025 project, which is an incredible book. And there's this incredible photo and quote. Tell us about this.
So the amazing Suzanne Phoenix, oh my God, she's such a queen photographer, just DM'd me one day and I was like, why the fuck not? Anyway, So I just rocked up. I think it was actually about the day that they found Isla Belle's body. It was very close to that day. So it was that particular day I was in a fucking rage, mate. I was so angry because I saw that when they put the posters up about Isla, I was with my partner on that first day those posters appeared and I just said to her, I just want this young woman home. That's it. That's all we want. Can we just have that one little fucking thing, God? And then very early that morning, like it was about 4 a.m., I opened my phone to do my normal femicide check, saw the notification from Victoria Police, and just that day was really, really emotional. And I think that photo was taken on that day or the next day. It was very close. And I was very angry and I got to Suzanne's studio and I just said, give me a pen, wrote Stop Killing Women on my hand and I just said, I'm going 100% because I don't have any fucks left after this. And she took that amazing photo.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
We were just talking a little bit earlier about that you feel like you're not good at social media, but your strategy is so straight to the point. It's simple. Stop killing women. Here's another woman that's been killed. Here's the number we're at. What the fuck, guys? Tell us how you got involved in that, because obviously you're a journalist first and for a number of years.
Yeah, so I've been a journalist for 28 years. People may know this or they may not know this, but my stepfather killed 2 little girls, 5-year-old Sandra Dorothy Bacon and 9-year-old Stacey Ann Tracy. Now, he killed Stacey Ann Tracy when he was married to my mother. He killed Sandra some 25 years before they married. The murder of Stacey Ann had a huge impact on my life. For a long time. It was one of the reasons why I became a journalist, because I didn't like the reporting around her death. So I spent a lot of time, being angry and trying to be this great journalist. And then I had the opportunity of doing a very awesome, or what I thought was going to be an awesome domestic violence series for regional newspapers in Queensland. It was like the centerpiece of their Walkley entry for that year. And I thought it was going to be an opportunity for me to do the journalism that I wanted to do, that would honour people like Stacey and Sandra. And, I would get pushback from editors. We don't want that story. We've heard too much about murdered women. We've heard too much about domestic violence. Readers don't care. It's saturation point. Just roll out a couple of stories. Let's get the award entry in, interview Rosie Batty and move on. And I didn't get to interview Rosie Batty. The person coordinating that actually took that opportunity.
Oh, that was nice of them.
And I just started the Red Heart campaign to give survivors a voice. And then it wasn't enough. I was still really angry, had a lot of emotion, and I thought, fuck it. I'm going to start documenting women and children killed. And I started that 10 years ago in September. And in that time, I've documented 2,000 lives lost to violence. It's a current project. So every time a woman or child is killed, I add their story and their photo to the memorial to women and children lost to violence, which is online on my website. And I also do the She Matters cards on social media, which is where I post a card with the woman's image, her name, where she was killed, and the number of her death, and write a story about her. And also do that with the children under their name is. And the idea here is to counter the media that we see around killed women. In almost every case, a woman is blamed for her own death. She is othered. She's turned into a thing. She's erased. She's slut-shamed. She's victim-blamed. There is some really shitty reporting in Australia, and it hasn't changed in all the time that I've been a journalist. And so the idea of She Matters is that we put a story out there that is about her, and we take the perpetrator out of it. I don't name him. I only ever say, her male partner, her male neighbour, or, a stranger is charged. So that is the only reference to the perpetrator in those stories. So it's really about her. It's about saying this woman matters. Let's give a fuck about her, and let's give a fuck about the fact that she's the first woman or the 101st woman killed this year. And yeah, I think it works really well. It resonates. Like anything, some stories do resonate with a broader audience, which kind of challenging, I guess, in a way. I find where women are killed where I can't identify them for any number of reasons, their stories get less traction. And that really is very disappointing and sad to me.
Yeah.
Because those women are no less important just because you can't see their face or say their name.
Exactly.
And then obviously the women who fall into that perfect victim category or, I guess traditionally beautiful, they often get a lot more traction. People really resonate with them. And, that drives me crazy because I think, an amazing auntie from the Northern Territory who happens to be an incredible artist, an incredible member of her community, and all of these things deserves as much passion as Samantha Murphy.
Yeah.
Both are equal to me, and I wish our community would realise that. And I hope that over time this will change and that my work will help influence that, I guess.
I mean, Belle, you had a really good question you wanted to ask Sherele about the pressures of being the voice of so many women, of doing such heavy work.
And I think I'm obviously a big fan of your Instagram, and I follow along. I don't want to say I like seeing your posts because obviously I never want to see another woman killed, but I do love that reframing of the narrative and kind of putting the focus back on the woman and who she was when she was alive, the story behind each person. But I guess I just find it so depressing to see number after number after number, and we get the same old spiel from the politicians about, our hearts go out to, but it's like, it's obviously not enough. It's still happening. So I don't care how sympathetic you are, how many, thoughts and prayers you want to give to everyone. I mean, how do you, not let everything just get you down? I'm sure you feel the weight of it. How do you manage that?
Yeah, that's some interesting question. I get asked that a lot, and I guess I don't think about the burden of it because I don't see it as a burden. I see it as something that someone has to do, and I'm fine to do that. I guess for me, the hardest thing with these projects is making sure I get it right. Yep. So making sure that I capture the women that other projects might miss or are not interested in, or women who don't fall into a particular category of victimization, that I get it right for the families and that I get it right legally in terms of sub judice and defamation. So the anxiety for me always comes from those things. Obviously, defamation and sub judice are a huge risk for the work I do, and I use my professionalism as a journalist to counter that, but I do have the support of a pro bono defamation lawyer. And thankfully, I don't need him very often. The way the government documents the killing of women or anyone in Australia is very narrow. And so the government now has a family violence counter, but it doesn't actually capture all the women lost to family violence. It just doesn't. And the reason why is because it captures deaths where there is a coronial ruling of murder-suicide, which does take a long time to come, and it captures homicide. And a significant number of women killed, their perpetrators are not charged with homicide, and they may be charged with manslaughter, they may be charged with grievous bodily harm, they may have murder-suicide, there may be a cloud over that. There are all these reasons why these women don't get captured, and so the government gives us this really deflated view of the impact of family violence on Australia, but my research shows it's significantly worse.
Yeah.
And, that's one of the things, like straddling that thing where, is this death the responsibility of someone else? Is it an unlawful act? That is my first question. And then my second question is, will people see it as an unlawful act or as violence? And I give you a really good example of this. The killing of Elizabeth Pearce in Perth very recently. Now, she died in what many people call a vehicle accident, but it's actually an unlawful act The man is charged with manslaughter. He allegedly chose to drive at exceedingly high speeds, having drunk a fair bit, whilst being emotionally raging, not upset, raging. That is an act of violence. That is using a car as a weapon, even if you don't mean to kill someone. The end result of that is a death. So Elizabeth sits on my project because it's a charge of manslaughter and because it was a very clear act of violence with a car as a weapon. If this man had done the same thing with a gun, she would be counted by other organisations and possibly by the government as having died in a violent act. Do you see?
Yeah.
But she falls through the net. So I know her death is a stranger violence, so it's obviously not going to come under the family violence context, but it's actually not going to be marked as homicide.
Yeah.
And it should be. These are the people that I try to capture, but then I have to like walk that line and make sure I get it right. And, you know, that causes me a lot of anxiety.
I went through a very abusive childhood with my mother was a perpetrator. I went through a very suicidal phase a few years ago, and I gave up drinking. And I was in hospital for 6 weeks. And I did a lot of research into intergenerational trauma. And I reconnected with my mother's family very recently because she's dying. And that's a very complex thing when your abuser is dying to process, when they're a family member in particular. And through connecting with my maternal family, I found there's one story in particular that really resonated with me. My mother's auntie, I want to say she was 21, 22. She was murdered by a man in Rockhampton because he was having an affair on his wife with my great auntie. The police never charged him. At the same time, I found out the same period of time, my dad's grandmother was shot point blank by her husband. All the kids were put in foster care, 8 kids put in foster care, you know. And I was like, yeah, maybe I'm an alcoholic for a reason, guys. Like maybe this runs in the family. Maybe we've got some unhealed trauma we need to fucking deal with. And I often wonder like how much of that is still in our cells, is in our memory, is in like gets passed through to us. So
I absolutely understand where you're coming from with your mother. My mother was abusive. She was the perpetrator of violence against me growing up. When I was 12, she raped me. So I suffered physical and sexual violence. And that is a really hard thing to handle and to bear. To be fair, I did experience violence at the hands of male relatives throughout my childhood and early teens. But my mother died about 2 years ago. And for my entire life, up until the day that she died, I was trying to be someone for her, trying to get her to love me, admire me, and respect me. All of those things. She didn't give a shit. She never did. No. She died without a word. I didn't speak to her for, since Stacey Ann was murdered, so 30 years. The day that she died, something changed in me. I stopped caring about her. I literally stopped thinking about her every day. It was like a light switch went off. It was so freeing. I don't want anyone to die, but when she died, I got my freedom. And I know it's a horrible thing to say, but I suspect that you will feel that too. Yeah. But also the trauma still exists. And maybe in a lot of ways, that's why I'm able to do what I can, because I experienced such trauma. So I've been through shit, and really what I do is nothing compared to what the families go through and compared to what I went through as a young person. But coming back to the murders of, or the femicides in your family, they are femicide, and we should always call it that. One of the things about my research shows that actually a significant number of Australian women throughout white Australian history have died in very similar circumstances. So the murder-suicide where it's just like, oh, yeah, whatever. That's literally what people say. Or the appearance of a suicide of a woman, and that is the cover-up of homicides as suicide is exceedingly common in this country, exceedingly common. It is much easier for police to sweep, or a coroner to sweep, a complicated death or the death of a marginalised or diverse person under the carpet than it is to fully investigate. Now, I'm working with multiple families across the country. At the moment, my main focus is Courtney Anderson's family. She died in suspicious circumstances on April 1 last year, and her family have been lobbying for a proper investigation into her death. The homicide squad were never called in. The coroner prematurely ruled her death as suicide. 3 things could have possibly happened on that day. She could have jumped from a car willingly. She could have jumped from the car because she was in fear, or she could have been pushed from the car. Only 2 people know what happened that night, and one of them is dead and the other one is refusing to talk.
Yeah.
Calling it a suicide a few months after she died is just the easy way out. And so this family has had to lobby and they're pushing, and, you know, it's such a hard fight for them. It really is. They should be grieving their daughter. All they want is a proper investigation. It happens so often. The thing about Courtney is she's a young white woman, so it's actually quite surprising that this is the outcome for her. Usually it's black women.
Yeah.
Or ethnic women. We have a definite murder from last year here in Victoria. The police haven't charged anyone over her death, and yet they know who the suspect is. It's like they're just, I don't know, in a holding pattern. She is not Australian. English is not her first language. Yeah. I think she comes from India. And so it's just easier for police to put in the too hard basket, and that happens far too much.
You know, something that we're trying to do with this podcast and with our show as well is really investigate the intersectionality there, because that is so important. Like, you can talk about white women femicide, you can talk about white women being abused or being accused of being witches and being persecuted, but the reality is, like, in the scheme of things, white women do have it a lot better than a lot of other women.
Absolutely. I mean, trans women as well, you know, and sex workers. So we had the murder of 2 sex workers here in Victoria a couple of years ago, and their killer copped a manslaughter charge and barely 7 years for each woman that he killed. Both Asian, English was not their first language, and they were sex workers. Yeah. Had they have been 2 white women, it would have been a very different outcome.
And I think I remember the reporting of that. It created that image of, like, oh, these women are just, you know, they're whores or they're harlots or they're, you know, they're not deserving of safety in the same way that people who don't do that line of work. Yeah,
absolutely. And we saw this with the murder of Isla Bell. We'll come back to her death. So Isla Bell, gregarious young woman, had a lot of friends. She's very outspoken. She's very funny. She loved a joke, and she made a joke to a friend in a text message. The text message was leaked to the media. The media ran with it as a serious story, and so the sugar daddy myth started.
Yes.
Then someone told the media that Isla was a sex worker. Now, regardless of whether she was or not, it's neither here nor there. But the thing is, she wasn't a sex worker. And this has caused her family so much grief. You know, they have suffered terribly. And even, you know, weeks ago, her family were begging the ABC, which is supposed to be, you know, the bastion of journalism, to take down a report that said she was this. Like, it clearly did it in big headline. You know, it was there. It was so big. They didn't even bother giving her family a call and saying, hey, can you confirm this? Can we say this?
And this is where it's important. It's like, once someone's dead, who is speaking up for them?
It's like their family.
It's their family. And if you don't have a loving or supportive family, or you're in a foreign country, or you're doing something that someone might deem inappropriate, too bad, too sad. Yeah, like, that's totally the message that the media has, generally speaking. Like, why aren't we putting the shame back on the man who did the killing? Why is it on the women who got murdered? On the women.
We had, so Frances Crawford, who was murdered last year up in the Lockyer Valley. Incredible woman, psychologist. She actually fits that profile of the perfect victim, to be honest. So traditionally beautiful, professional, well-spoken, you know, the woman that a lot of people admire, I guess. The media consistently othered her, so she was always framed as the RAAF pilot's wife, and she was consistently framed as the mower murder. Now, the reason they used that term was simply because her body was found under a mower. In a lot of reporting about victims like Frances Crawford, you get a somewhat better level of reporting, and yet you don't, because it still happens. And she was still framed in that way. She wasn't marginalised, she wasn't diverse, but she was still framed simply because he was an RAAF pilot and she was found under a mower. And you know, that's really common. That's incredibly common. We had a woman who was killed also up in Queensland. She was allegedly murdered by her nephew, but her brother happened to have played cricket once for Australia. One test cricket game. She was framed as the aunt and sister of, so the aunt of the nephew who killed her, or allegedly killed her, and the sister of this test cricketer. Throughout all of the reporting, everything was just framed around the men. This woman her life was gone. She had a whole fucking life. She was unique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can recall cases like that as well. The one that springs to mind, I think there was a woman found in a laundry chute in St Kilda at some point. I think she'd been dating the son of very sort of prominent legal family, or sort of related to the judiciary. None of the reports were anything to do about her. It was just how good a bloke her partner possibly could have been. And it was like, but hang on, why aren't we talking about how this woman somehow got herself into a laundry chute?
Yeah.
And died.
There's so much shame. And it's like...
And I'd be very interested, I think, Sherele. I mean, there's a distinct lack of male voices in this space, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are male voices. The question is, are they male voices that we can trust is what we need to ask ourselves. And also, are they actually doing it for the right reasons? Are they turning up every time a woman's killed, or only turning up when a particular woman is killed or there's a particular media spotlight? I think Anthony Albanese is a really good one to talk about here. So he does talk about women and women's safety and stuff. But crazy thing, last year he spoke a lot about, the tragic losses of Australians when Australians were dying. Obviously the two people who died in the famous yacht race, whatever that's called.
Wait, some two white rich dudes died in the yacht race?
Yeah, that's right. Somewhere around Boxing Day. They do it every year, apparently. Who knew? But no, seriously, I was just watching him throughout the year, just about every week. He was sending empathy and sympathy to families. And, good thing. It's good that he's up there recognising that these people are dying, and he's, at least trying to be part of that conversation, I guess. So I went and analysed all of the empathies and sympathies that he sent to families last year of people who had died. And turns out he only sent empathies and sympathies to 2 femicide victims' families. 2. By my count today, 103 women died last year, and he hasn't sent any to the 13 women who have been killed this year. Intriguing. So interestingly enough, the 2 women that he did speak about had a huge media spotlight on them, a global media spotlight. Now, I'm not saying there's a link.
It's very virtue signalling, isn't it?
It was very much. And you know what? They don't turn up for every woman.
No.
They just don't. They're not turning up for the older Aboriginal women who were killed in the NT this year. They didn't turn up for them. They don't turn up. They don't turn up for the unnamed victims, the older women, so women over a certain age, over, say, 45 or 50. The women who aren't pretty and blonde, in a lot of cases, not the ethnic women. There are just all of these women they don't turn up for. And my argument is, if you're going to talk about violence against women and you're going to stand for the ending violence against women, you need to turn up and talk about every fucking one. Yeah. If you are not, then you are a part of the problem. Yeah. You are a big part of the problem, and that's not good enough.
There's some things that I just wanted to talk about in terms of the history of where we see this. When I started doing research into witchcraft, I was like, oh, this is fucked. Like, this has been happening for a very long time. Here I am thinking it's just something that's a modern invention. But no, it turns out men have kind of hated women for, a very long time. And let's go back to our favourite time in history, which is when the Malleus Maleficarium was written. Have you heard of this lovely book?
No, I have not.
Oh, this isn't in our little thing. The Malleus Maleficarium was a book that was written by some wanker in Germany, and it was considered a legal and theological document. My favorite thing about the Malleus Maleficarium is he wrote it after he tried to fight a woman over something she did. Like, a woman had wronged him, and he went home, wrote this really fucking horrible book that led to the persecution of many women for a long time. So anyway, the Malleus Maleficarium is what kind of spurred on a lot of the witch hunting hysteria in Europe. So it went into 12 reprints, was first printed in 1486, went into 12 reprints. The Malleus Maleficarium, it literally translates to the hammer of witches. So it's literally an instruction manual talking about what makes a witch and why they're bad. This is from a separate book called The Witch Hunter by Reginald Scott. A witch is a woman which may be commonly old, lame, bleary-eyed, pale, foul, and full of wrinkles, usually very poor, sullen, or outspoken.
I think you just described me.
Yeah. I read that and I was like, oh, shit.
Let me just my BO.
But I think there's a little bit of all of us in that quote, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. There were a lot of men that rose up. So James the First of Scotland, we talked about last week, he had a really traumatic time on the sea, and all of a sudden he's come back to the UK and he's blamed the women that were in the north of Scotland, and he's like, they caused it. He was the king and he oversaw this whole court case and sat there and also was there at their execution just because he had a bad trip on the sea. You're a king and that's the best thing you can do with your time. And all these women were old as well. They weren't young. They were older women. So
who's the easiest scapegoat here?
Exactly.
To blame? Yeah.
And create
In other
that
words,
division.
it's actually, who don't we want to fuck anymore?
Yeah. 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 We have a long history of women actually being really powerful and strong in society. That all got forgotten during the witch hunts. And I love showing this. It was literally an address book that someone had given to an op shop. And in it, there's all these beautiful photos of women in the Middle Ages doing shit that we were told women didn't do. So you've got like photos of women hunting, shooting animals. You never see that story. Women builders. Yeah, it's brilliant, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. Defending the castle.
Yeah, defending the castle. And look at her. She's on a horse with her sword. She's like, but you never hear these stories.
Actually, I would like to point out something that people don't talk about a lot is Aboriginal women and as warriors.
Yeah, warriors.
And using dingoes to help protect them, which is amazing. So when white people came, Aboriginal women were targeted, for rape and other violence, and they would get their sword out and get their dingoes and fucking fight back and protect the women. Like, they were literally out there doing amazing things and being amazing warriors, and we don't hear enough about that.
Okay. Have you heard of Dr. Anita Hill?
Yes, I have, but I'm just refreshing my mind because I have menopause brain and forget.
No, that's fine. I have.
Well, I haven't. So
Okay.
tell me, enlighten me.
Okay, so she was one of 13 children. Her paternal great-grandparents were born in slavery in America. She was a valedictorian in 1973, Bachelor of Psychology 1977, Juris Doctor in 1980 from Yale Law School. She worked in the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission during the 1980s. So in 1991, G.H.W. Bush elected Clarence Thomas as a Supreme Court judge. So when a Supreme Court judge gets elected in America, my understanding, this could be wrong, is that you need everyone to kind of sign off in it. So the FBI leaked information stating that he wasn't fit to be a Supreme Court judge because he had allegations of sexual harassment and abuse against him from several women. Most of them obviously didn't want to speak up because they were like, we're going to get persecuted. And Anita Hill was one of the women that spoke up. In a jury of all white men, middle-aged white cis het men, she got accused of making it all up. Now, I just want to play a little bit of audio from the actual trial in 1991. It's important to note she got sent death threats, bomb threats to not only herself, her family. She lost jobs. She was also a black woman in America who wasn't, I don't think she was married at this point. I'm pretty sure she doesn't have children to this day. So once again, seen as, what value do you give to white men?
Can you tell the committee what was the most embarrassing of all the incidences that you have alleged?
You testified this morning that the most embarrassing question involved, this is not too bad, women's large breasts. That's a word we use all the time. You testified, you drew an inference that Judge Thomas might want you to look at pornographic films, but you told the FBI specifically that he never asked you to watch the films. Is that correct? The fact is, flatly, he never asked you to look at pornographic movies with him. Quote, this is not too bad, I can read it. Thomas liked to discuss specific sex acts and frequency of sex, close quote.
Fuck me.
Not too bad though, guys. Not too bad.
I just imagine that you're a guy and you're sitting there and you're telling a woman her experience is not too fucking bad.
Guess who was one of those senators? Joe Biden.
Oh my God.
Joe
Really?
Biden was the
fuck's
very
sake.
first one in that. He was asking a lot of these very controversial questions. And before he became Barack Obama's vice president, he reached out to Anita Hill just privately and was like, oh, I'm sorry about that. But it was once again virtual signaling. He's like, look, I love black people. My president's a black man. Like he chose me because I'm a good white ally. And it's like, no, you're fucking not.
Because I often deal with cases of sexual harassment in the workplace because I'm an employment lawyer in my day job. And the amount of times you will come up against alleged perpetrators that say, I couldn't have possibly done this because I have a wife. I have daughters. I have daughters. So I immediately, I could not have possibly done anything wrong to any other woman at all in any aspect of my life. It's just, it's baffling.
It's that proximity to either, it's the proximity to the minority that makes them go, but I couldn't.
So the thing about this is men care for women because they have a wife or daughter. Men can't hurt women because they have a wife or daughter. And yet it's almost always a man who's doing this shit.
Yeah.
And they don't have wives and daughters?
Yeah. They don't know any women in their life. Like they don't have a mother. Like they don't have a...
How can I be a rapist? I have a wife, a mother, a daughter. How can I... Of course I don't support the rapist. I have a wife, a mother, a daughter.
And the irony that it's like also those people that are closest to you that are most likely to kill
be the
you,
victim.
to be
be the victim and for you to hurt them.
Yeah, exactly. I remember a few years ago, because I sort of live off Sydney Road basically, and so after Jill Maher was murdered, like I know, you know, the whole community was reeling and everyone, like I walk home and go to the same bars in that same strip, and so that is so close to home, right? And I think when I think about I walk home work or from bars late at night by myself, you're most worried about that, you know, the dangerous guy that's lurking in the shadows, lurking in the laneway that's going to grab you. And the reality is actually the people that are most likely to hurt you and to kill you are the people that are like once you get home.
Yeah. Or actually, and also keep in mind that it's not necessarily the person that you're in a relationship with. It could actually be your neighbor or your housemate or your friend or your boss.
Yeah.
You never lose sight of that. So the women killed last year, 60% died as a result of domestic and family violence. So either a partner, former partner or family member. 30% were killed by men who knew them, but they were not related. And 98% of the deaths involved male perpetrators. So really what it is, the rule is you are more likely to die at the hands of someone who knows you, who is a male, than anyone else. And I know that we so often talk about domestic and family violence, and so we should always have those conversations, but we have to normalize conversations about associate violence because the fact is the drivers are still the same, the factors are still the same. Just because you're not having sex doesn't mean that they won't hurt you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet they spend how much money on anti-terrorism financing and this and that. For instance, at the moment, Trump's on a big thing about transgender people being the perpetrators of violence. And I'm like, I genuinely, I'm not saying all transgender people are wonderful because obviously there may be some that aren't. But I would say out of everyone I know who's been sexually assaulted or raped or abused, it has been by cis het white men.
So I can categorically say that of the femicides that I've documented over the past 10 years, none were committed by a trans person. However, we've lost at least one trans woman to violence by a heterosexual man every year. And that is actually, I know one is not a lot of deaths, but if you look at the size of the transgender population, that one is really a high percentage. I recall one trans person being charged with the manslaughter of her male partner, and police dropped that charge. This is in the same time frame, because she was defending herself. So the charge was actually dropped a couple of weeks later. So really the one person who did kill, one trans woman who did kill was
It was in self-defense
herself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We had our friend Marnie on here a couple of weeks ago, and she's a beautiful trans woman, and just hearing about how hard even her childhood was. And you do have a lot of these honor killings as well, where it's like if you don't fit into this box, it is so easy to be killed. It is so easy for someone to justify it and be like, you're not doing X, Y, Z, therefore you have no value.
I think it's terrifying how quickly, or just how that can happen in any circumstance with, you know, anyone that's in your proximity, whether it's your neighbor or someone you're dating, or
it's just the guy that you maybe have coffee with every now and then in the coffee room at your work. And when I say coffee with, he's sitting 3 tables over.
Women are so often told not to trust their intuition. I don't anymore. I'm like, if that guy gives me the ick, I have the ick.
But so often I think as women, we like become the sacrifice. You're like, oh, I want to make sure everyone around me is comfortable and everyone feels safe. But it's like that you know, again, if I then feel awkward, I'm like, I don't want to create a scene or make, you know, someone else feel uncomfortable because I feel uncomfortable. But it's actually like, as I get older, I'm a bit more like, you know what, I am going to go home, or I am going to move seats on the tram if someone's weird or someone's
I don't
like,
care.
I'm not comfortable. Exactly.
When I was 20 years old, I would never, like, I would have bent over backwards to do all the right shit. And you know what? I fucking don't anymore.
Yeah.
You know, like, you just get to 40, you kind of stop doing it. And then by the time you're 50, you're like, you really stop doing that shit.
Yeah.
You just, life is too fucking short. And there's so much more for us to do than just appease people that we are not comfortable with. So don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to talk about just quickly. So obviously everyone knows about Malala. Now Malala she's Pakistani born. She's actually the same age as one of my younger sisters, and that blows my mind. But in 2012, she was walking home from school and she got shot by the Taliban. As we're seeing at the moment, there are a lot of issues in the Middle East where a lot of very oppressive regimes are taking away rights. They are reducing the ages of consent there. You know, and obviously this is still an issue. There is this character called Fatima El-Thiri. She was actually credited with founding the world's oldest continuously running university during the 9th century. It's the University of Al-Qarayn, and it's located in Morocco. Why I bring that up is because Malala, she survived an oppressive regime when she was solely trying to get an education. A lot of the time societies try to take education away from women because they think if they're smart, they will speak out. They will become these loud women. They will understand history and they will go, hey, wait a second. At what point did we decide women weren't fucking awesome? Why aren't we running the world? And Malala actually, she used some of the funding that she got in 2015 to start a school in Lebanon for refugees from the Syrian civil war. And I think that's why what you do is important, and why, you know, having these conversations is important, because men wrote history. We know that. Men wrote history for a lot of the part. It's now our chance to write her story, you know, and to be loud and to take up that space.
We are all women. Why the fuck wouldn't we bat for our own team?
Exactly.
Like, why wouldn't we? The chances are that someone we know has been hurt. The chances are that someone we know is actually going to be killed.
Yep.
And I'm not blowing that out of proportion. That death may be covered up as a suicide or maybe written off as an accident, but chances are that's going to happen. Someone you know, someone in your circle is going to be hurt.
Yep.
And, you know, if we're not standing up for ourselves, if we're not standing up for our sisters, then we might as well just go back to bed and die.
Yeah. Because they win. That's it. The witch burnings, the colonization, all of this was done to force, and, you know, you look at the stolen generation, like, they weren't allowed to speak their language. They weren't allowed to talk about their past history. And you see that still today in Sri Lanka, for instance. My partner is from Sri Lanka. I'm doing the white girl thing again. My partner's brown. I'm so woke. But he went to an international school in Sri Lanka. It's the same in India as well, where they have international schools and they only speak English. They are not allowed to speak their native tongue at all. So he knows a bunch of people that can't speak Sinhalese, which is the national language of, well, Sinhalese and Tamil, but they can't speak one or the other. They can only speak English. They can't even read their native language. They don't even have their surnames, because a lot of places you had to, so for instance, places like the Philippines and Sri Lanka and parts of India where you've got colonialism that have come in, they have last names that are Spanish or something. Like, you have a lot of De Silvas, a lot of Pereiras, a lot of things like that. That wasn't by choice. That was because you had to change your name to make someone happy. And they probably raped the fuck out of your ancestors too. Like, but you don't have that history because they burnt all those records. There are families that will never know their last names because of colonialism. They'll never know their stories. And we have Ancestry.com, which is great for white people, but...
I think that the thing to remember about male oppression in any society, that actually can happen in our society.
Easily.
And it does happen. Like, it's minor compared to places like Afghanistan. You know, like, there are countries where the oppression is much worse. But don't ever think that there aren't people who are having those thoughts here in this country.
Yep.
Or in America, and they are whittling away. Don't ever think that people like Donald Trump don't want that. They don't want loud women. They don't want feisty women. They don't want black people. And, you know, they're doing it through the law by erasing DEI over there. But imagine if they had more control, what they would do.
Yeah.
They would whittle it away. They wouldn't whittle it away. They'd just rip it out from under us.
Well, just look at like even the Anita Hill case. Like that was 1990. Like to me, that was yesterday, but it was like over 30 years ago. Let's be honest. She spent her whole life. She was a Yale graduate. She was a doctor. She was a professor. Like she was so incredibly smart. And she had to sit there and listen to middle-aged white men tell her, you're wrong. Like, this guy's not that bad. Come on. They were given a direct opportunity to call out a male who had been an absolute piece of shit. And they went, but you're the only woman testifying. Like, what? Like, that was only 30 years ago, guys. Like,
keep in mind, E. Jean Carroll had to watch her rapist elected by America to president. Like, she literally watched millions of Americans say that she didn't get raped.
Well, I think he's now
crazy,
up to
right?
37 women or something who have accused him of rape. We have a rapist president. That's why Andrew Tate and his brother, who are sexual traffickers, just got brought back into America. But, you know, transgender people, immigrants, if you want to support Sherele in her incredible work with the Red Heart campaign, go and follow her on Instagram, please. There are rallies coming up next weekend. Can you tell us a little bit about the rallies?
Yes, so we've got 13 She Matters rallies happening across Australia, at least one in every state and territory, which is amazing. 3 in Victoria, so Bendigo, Geelong and Naarm. I'm just going to say the Melbourne speaker, the main speaker, is amazing, a queen, a warrior, the proudest Black woman, the most outspoken Black woman. I love her. Can't tell you her name for security reasons, but she's going to be there. Please come and just, hit me up on Instagram and I will tell you where your local event is if you're in another place.
Yeah.
Please
And
come.
stand with your sisters. This is what we're talking about. Stand and not just women, men come to the rally. Like be there.
Absolutely. And if you go down to Hosier Lane, you may still see a mural there of the faces of the 116 women killed over the last 14 months. I'm hoping it'll last a week or two. So probably won't.
No, I can imagine a bunch of guys are already like,
I feel like it's been tagged already.
Yeah, possibly.
But it looks amazing. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. If you want to watch, it seems a bit silly now, but if you do want to watch our comedy show coming up, it's called Toil, Trouble and Trauma. It's at Speakeasy Theatre from the 7th to the 15th of April at 8:45 p.m. We'll send some free tickets your way.
I will have tickets. Thank you. Free tickets.
Yes, we will send.
Very poor free tickets.
No, we will. And this is the
Absolutely.
thing. We want women in
love you to
seats
be
that matter because
I'm gonna be
we'll make the white guys pay for the tickets and we'll get all the women in.
Exactly. And there'll be jokes. It will be more lighthearted than this discussion.
It will be funny, but yes, we definitely want to also make sure that, we're having these conversations because we can't obviously put all of this into a 1-hour comedy show.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.